I'm feeling inspired by inspiration today and the concept of Awen in modern Druidry. I'm recording a short video for you today to share my personal understanding of inspiration, which as an artist, storyteller, and workshop leader, I have dedicated my life to and I work with every day. So Awen, first of all, is a Welsh word, which is often translated as flowing spirit or inspiration. You see the symbol at the top, which in modern Druidry is a very iconic symbol that is used to represent the Awen. It can be seen as 3 rays or 3 standing stones. And Awen, as I said, is often translated as inspiration, but it can be much more than that. I have brought together these different words to describe it, which could be flow, exaltation, creativity, enthusiasm, rapture, awe, and wonder. It's a certain state of being, it's a state of consciousness. It's something that is slightly mysterious as well. So for me, the way I see it is there is source energy, pure divine consciousness. And just like the light in a prism gets divided into different colors, this one consciousness divides itself into some foundational frequencies like love, peace, forgiveness, gratitude. All those states of being and states of experience, really, that are at the core of all spiritual traditions. So I see the divine as this pure light then manifested into these different colors, into these different rays. And for me, the Awen, or the state of awe and inspiration, is one of those frequencies and one of those states of being that are very close to the divine. And I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So here's an example. In Chinese martial arts, a lot of the movements and the ways of using the hands, the arms, to shifting the weight was inspired by observing animals. So there's the soaring crane and the snake movements, the tiger, the dragon, and a famous quote by Bruce Lee, "Be like water, my friend." So we have a situation where people have observed nature. And sometimes we might look at a bird and we think it's just a bird. But then there are other times when we look at a bird and the very movement of the bird and the energy that moves through the bird becomes something more. It sparks of inspiration. And so the movement that we observe becomes a movement that we bring through our own body. It becomes martial arts, Tai Chi, it becomes a dance. So that energy of inspiration happens in relationship. It's like a translation of energy from one state into a different state, from the movement of an animal to the movement of a human body. And then we can take this a bit further. So as I just said, Awen is about relationships. It's the relationships between the musician, his instruments, but also his feelings and the landscapes and the times that he lives in and that he creates in. So to give you another example, the way that a guitar is built inspires a certain way of playing it. And then the person who plays it and the time and the place that this person is in, not just on the outside, but also on the inside, the emotional, mental state of well-being or suffering, then finds its way into how this guitar is played. And let's imagine a song emerges and the song is recorded and maybe travels for 10, 20, 30 years, and it holds a certain frequency, a certain message that is both tangible but also leads into the mystery, into this emanation of the divine. And so this song could be heard 30 years later, and maybe it inspires a poem, and that poem might be shared somewhere, and someone else reads it and thinks about the poem, and a certain feeling arises, and that feeling sparks of a longing, maybe sparks of a time of traveling, and during that time of traveling, maybe two people fall in love, and then between them they create a child, and that child is then out in the world, living in this realm that is so filled with other people's inspiration. And sometimes we can't even track, so we could say the guitar that was built inspired the song, inspired the poem, inspired the journey, inspired the two people meeting, inspired the love and the birth of a child. So in a way, we are all here because of so many events in the invisible world, like different threads of Awen that link different people and places. And we can see this in the museum, for example, that the Awen, or the inspiration that has gone into a painting, travels across time and space. It links different people and events. For example, the Renaissance and the interest in Greek mythology inspired paintings that have now survived for 400 or 500 years that we can now see in the museum. And as an artist, I sometimes like to take a sketchbook and to spend a whole day in a museum just to look at different paintings, studying them and making sketches in my own sketchbook. And maybe elements of those sketches might find their way into a composition, into a picture that I create for something else. So there's all these invisible threads that we can be open to and be a part of if we choose to live our lives in a more inspired way. And there's a whole lot more to this. From a scientific perspective, I want to mention Gerald Hüther, who is a German neuroscientist. And he explains neuroscience in a very simple way. He breaks it down so everyone can understand it. He's saying that whilst we are in the womb, whilst we are being created as babies, and whilst our brains are developing, there are two fundamental experiences that we are making. One experience is that we are growing, and the other experience is that we are learning. So we are both being nourished and held, and we are also expanding. And we can see this in the tree as a living symbol for this principle, where the roots represent our sense of connection and the need for connection and safety and being held and rooted. And the branches can represent the sense of curiosity, freedom, and expansion. And he's saying that these two things, once we are born and we grow up as children, these two things determine how our brain is shaped. And we always need to know there is a safe place to return to, let's say our parents or teacher in school, ideally. And that we can then go from that safe place out into the world and explore what else is there. And that sense of curiosity, of inspiration, of enthusiasm is actually what creates the neuroflexibility in our brains. And he's saying that at any age, if we enter into states of inspiration, of Awen, of flow and creativity, we can regain neuroflexibility. And it's a bit like a watering can. So we can take that watering can with a really beautiful and potent fertilizer of our own state of consciousness of inspiration, and actually enhance how our brains and our emotional centers are working together and synchronizing themselves. This is also the topic of a book that I'm currently reading from Rob Hopkins, which is called From What Is to What If. And in his book, he's saying that the crisis that we are currently in, the climate crisis, cultural, ecological, economical crisis, is fundamentally a crisis of imagination, where we are using technology that is a lot of the time not conducive to our own ideas and inspiration to flow. And he talks about the school system and many different aspects. It's a really interesting read if you have the time. So this for me links all those dots to why inspiration and the Awen is so needed in our times. And as children, we all have the capacity for endless curiosity. And we are very, very much forced into abandoning the things that naturally spark us off, to redirect our attention to the things that the teacher believes that we need to learn at a certain age, at a certain time, which is sad, but also it doesn't have to be like a final thing, because we can all learn how to gain access to our inspiration once again. It's never too late, even after a couple of decades in the school system. And when I think about druids and druidry in ancient times, one of the things that I admire is the druids' love of learning, this constant questing for developing not just knowledge, but real wisdom and understanding that comes through the body. And as I've just pointed out, they did not know the neuroscience, but they knew the application, where even up to a high age, people could maintain a state of access to their own enthusiasm. And that then in turn makes the brain flexible, makes understanding, memory, knowledge accessible, which is, if you think about it, in an oral tradition where you can't rely on written books and little notes and other resources to refresh your knowledge other than your own memory and conversation with other people. This is a real crucial aspect to maintain the sense of flexibility and openness to keep learning and keep entering the state of awe, not just to gain like an end result or to get somewhere, but just for the state itself, because the Awen is a spiritual state. It's a spiritual state of openness, curiosity, enthusiasm for life, that all other life, like on this picture, the bird and the oak tree, other forms of life respond to that energy because we're entering a deeper state of connection. So the Awen really for me is a key tool to unlock the interconnectivity and the sense of relationship. And that's why I've created a 4-module course that will start next week on the 5th of April, where I'm going to pass on my favorite techniques of actually working with Awen. Because sometimes people believe it's all about having an idea, but actually having an idea is just a very first step. It's so much more about being open, receptive, and shaping a safe container for that idea to take roots and then to direct the energy. So we're going to be working with the template of the Wheel of the Year and the 4 directions and the 4 archetypes of the child, the feminine, the masculine, and the higher self, or the older, wiser part of us. And I'll be showing you how I, as an artist and writer, storyteller, work with this flow of inspiration, which is a very living force that is connected to your joy, to your ability to create. And you can apply this knowledge that I will pass on and these techniques to any area of your creativity. For me, it's a lot about personally, it's about visual arts. And I've created another workshop, which is going to come up in May this year, where we're going to look at sacred geometry and Celtic knotwork, which I'm super excited about because this is one of the secrets of my artwork and why people recognize it as carrying a certain energy of beauty and harmony, which is based on mathematical laws that have been known since antiquity that I incorporate into the artwork. So there's a structure, but then within it, there's a flow, and the Awen can really flow through this craft of sacred geometry and Celtic knotwork in the sense that it connects us directly to the mind of our ancestors who have created and discovered those tools and those practices. So I am excited about these 2 upcoming workshops. And yeah, if you want to sign up, have a look at my website, forrestheart.co.uk. And I wish you a beautiful day and look forward to hosting these events for you. Awen blessings. Goodbye for now.